He looked at his wife, the woman he'd loved for 20 years, the mother of his children, the person who knew him better than anyone alive, and he felt nothing. Not recognition, not love, not even familiarity. Just the absolute certainty that she was an impostor. And no amount of proof, no photograph, no memory, no DNA test could convince him otherwise. This is his story. His name was David, though for his privacy we'll use that name instead of his real one. 23 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a quiet life in suburban Connecticut. He was a high school English teacher. She was a nurse. They had the kind of love that made other couples jealous. Not passionate or dramatic, but steady, unshakable, or so everyone thought. March 14, 2008. David was driving home from a conference. Rain, a curve he'd taken 1,000 times. He never saw the truck that ran the red light. When he opened his eyes 3 days later, everything had changed. The first face he saw was hers. She was crying, holding his hand, whispering, thank God you're okay." And David looked at her and had no idea who she was. But that's not the strange part. He remembered his wife, her name, the day they met, their first kiss, their wedding. Every memory was intact. He just didn't believe this woman was her. "I know what my wife looks like. I know her voice, her mannerisms, and this woman has all of it. But it's not her. I don't know who she is or why she's pretending, but she is not my wife." Doctors ran every test, brain scans, psychiatric evaluations. No hallucinations, no confusion, no loss of intelligence. David's mind was completely intact, except for one impossible belief. He was absolutely certain the woman he'd loved for 2 decades was a perfect copy, an impostor. What David was experiencing has a name: Capgras Delusion, and understanding it requires understanding how your brain creates love. When you look at someone you love, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, your visual cortex recognizes their face. That's my wife. Second, your limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, creates a feeling: warmth, safety, love. I love her. These 2 systems talk to each other. Vision says, I see her. Emotion says, I feel her. And together, they create certainty. But in David's brain, the car accident had severed that connection. His visual cortex still worked. He could see his wife's face, recognize every feature. But the emotional pathway, the part that makes you feel recognition, was destroyed. So his brain saw her face but felt nothing. No warmth, no recognition, no love. And when logic and emotion contradict each other, emotion always wins. His brain created the only explanation that made sense. I can see my wife's face, but this doesn't feel like my wife. Therefore, this must be someone else. A perfect impostor, a replacement, a copy so precise even doctors couldn't tell the difference. But here's what makes Capgras even more haunting. When his wife called him on the phone, he recognized her completely. On the phone, she was his wife, no question. Her voice felt right, real, true. But the moment he saw her face, impostor. Why? Because the pathway from auditory processing to emotion was still intact. He could feel her through her voice, but vision to emotion, destroyed. Which raises a question that haunted David's doctors. If your brain knows something is true, but doesn't feel true, which one is real? David's logic screamed, that's your wife. You have proof, photos, memories, DNA. His emotion whispered, no, something's wrong. She's not real. And emotion won, every single time, Because love isn't logic. Recognition isn't proof. Everything we think we know about identity, about connection, about what makes someone real to us, depends on a fragile electrical signal in the brain. And when that signal dies, reality itself fractures. David's wife stayed. For 2 years, she visited him every single day, trying to prove she was real, trying to be recognized. She showed him their wedding video, their daughter's birth certificates, scars only she would know he had. He was never cruel, never angry, just certain. "I'm sorry," he'd say. "I know you believe you're her, but you're not." Eventually, she stopped coming. Not because she stopped loving him, but because the man she loved was already gone. Capgras doesn't always last forever. Some cases improve. The brain can sometimes rewire itself, rebuild those broken pathways. But David's never did. He lives in a long-term care facility now. His wife, his real wife, still sends letters. He reads them politely, like you'd read a letter from a stranger. The woman he loved is gone. But she's also still here. The cruelest trick the mind can play. We trust our minds to tell us what's real, to show us who to love, who to trust, who we are. But Capgras reminds us of something terrifying. Reality isn't what we see, it's what we feel. And when that feeling breaks, so does everything else. Subscribe to Timeless Minds.